Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Can you please rise as we welcome the procession inside the venue? Thank you so much. Thank you. Please be seated.
Okay. I assume this is the microphone. Good evening. Wow, this is an amazing turnout. Thank you for taking the time to be here. We're excited. Donita, you're obviously very loved and very admired. Very impressive turnout. Colleagues, I officially welcome you on behalf of the Faculty of Sciences to the professorial inaugural lecture of Professor Donita Africander. I would like to extend our welcome and our heartfelt welcome to our colleagues from the University of Stellenbosch, our DVC, Professor Nico Koopman, our two Deputy Deans, Professor Kals and Professor Witsky, the Head of Department, Mr. Strauss, and our colleagues from other universities, from other labs, from Stellenbosch, friends and family, welcome. I want to have a special welcome and a special word to Donita's loved ones and her friends and her family. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mrs. Rhoda, Donita's mother. Thank you for being here. We know the health was not too good today, but we're honored to have you here. Donita's husband, Nolan, welcome. I can see you glowing since I've walked into the hall. Congratulations. And their daughters, Nicole and Robin. And then to Donita's niece, her third daughter, Melissa. Welcome, and we hope you enjoy it tonight. So I was given a very long biography to read as well. And I thought, I'm not going to read all of it, but we're here to celebrate Donita. We're here to celebrate her being appointed, promoted to a full professor at Stellenbosch University starting from this year. So I have to brag a bit on her behalf, so please allow me. She's a professor of biochemistry at Stellenbosch University. She completed her MSc in medical biochemistry at Stellenbosch and started her career as a technical officer in the biochemistry department. So not as an academic, as a technical officer. She then progressed to the position of junior lecturer and enrolled for a PhD, which she completed in 2010. Her dissertation focused on comparing the molecular mechanisms of true progestins commonly used in injectable contraceptions in sub-Saharan Africa. And when I put this together today, I actually had to go Google what progestins are. And I discovered that it's an artificial, man-made substance that are given to women. I get that right. So we will know more after she's spoken as well. This passion in this research field of Donita's started with her PhD, and when she saw the impact this artificial man-made hormone has when it's injected into women. And it is especially used in contraceptives and menopausal hormone therapy. She's particularly interested in the side effects associated with this progestins, such as an increased incidence, not resistance, of breast cancer and susceptibility to HIV. Breast cancer in women the most prevalent cancer in women, HIV, still the scourge. We were at a presentation not too long ago where this was the topic, that we still have this pandemic. We just don't speak about it anymore. Professor Africander has also been a visiting scientist in the United States at the Rockefeller University in New York. She was promoted as a full professor this year. Currently, she leads her own group in the department, and she has supervised or co-supervised 24 postgraduate students, including 12 master students who has graduated cum laude. That means those students graduated with distinction, above 75%. That's an amazing achievement. It shows the dedication of Donita to training and taking what she has and really imparting it to others. I'm nearly done, then we can listen to you. She has published several articles in international peer-reviewed journals. She has delivered various keynote addresses, served on various conference organizing committees, and chaired various sessions, both nationally and internationally at conferences. You know, what sets her slightly apart is the following. She's a strong advocate for career advancement and diversity. I've been at Stellenbosch for 3 months, and I've seen that in the 3 months that I've here. So an advocate for equality, equity, and for transformation. She served on the Appointments and Academics Promotion Committee and the Transformation Advisory Committee of the Faculty of Science. All of that extremely boring. I've been asked to add the following as well. Outside her professional life, apparently it's always been a dream to be a professional singer. I was told to add that she now only sings in the shower. You asked me to say that, by the way. And apparently, if you look at the departmental Instagram account, it says that she is a self-described foodie. So you're probably going to explain us what that means as well on your last slide. So colleagues, please enjoy this. Once again, congratulations, Donita. And please join me in welcoming Professor Donita Africander to the podium.
So surprise, surprise, you thought you're coming for a lecture, and yeah, I'm going to be the singer tonight. Firstly, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Professor Fielding, for the kind introduction. I'm going to have to walk around with a mic because I don't like to be stuck behind a podium. So I want to firstly welcome everybody. There's been some welcomes, but my personal welcome. Firstly to Professor Fielding and the Deputy Deans, and then Professor Koopman, my colleagues and friends, family, and I have to give a special welcome to my friend Karen, that traveled from Johannesburg to come to this talk. I have to give a very, very special welcome to my crazy friend Megan, who came all the way from Connecticut in the US for this talk. And then surprise, surprise, this evening, I'm trying to find another friend that's here from Dubai. So thank you so much. I am indeed loved. So, when I thought about how to pitch this talk this evening, I spoke to my HOD, Professor Eric Strauss, and he said that when he gave his talk, he pitched it to his grandma that he knew was going to be in the audience. So tonight, I am pitching my talk to my family and friends. So my colleagues in science, please bear with me. Okay. So this has been the title that's been floating around for the last couple of weeks. I am going to be changing this title a little bit. But before I go into my journey, because I have to say that it's indeed an honor and a privilege to be standing here and to be able to share my research journey with all of you. But I'm going to do this in a way where I add a little bit of my personal life. And so to start with, I'm going to start with a dedication to my late father and mother. This is going to take a minute. My father was an educator and believed that education would open doors for me, and it certainly did. My brother, who passed away 2 years ago, was my biggest cheerleader, and he would have been, I think, jumping around here this evening. So I believe he's jumping around somewhere. And then that was going to be my dedication. But then my mom very nearly didn't make it here this evening. I can't look at her because she was discharged from hospital just this afternoon. So I'm very grateful to have her here. And I want to thank her and my father for giving me the opportunities that they never had, because without them, I would not be here today. So thank you. I love you lots. Okay, so after all that, where did my journey in STEM start? It started at the University of the Western Cape as an undergraduate student. I finished my BSc, and I mentioned UWC for two reasons. One, because this is where I met then Dr. Denver Hendricks, and he was the person that really inspired me to become an academic, and more so to become a biochemist, because he had an infectious passion for biochemistry. So Denver, wherever you are, thank you. And then the second significant event, and probably the most important, was this is where I met my husband, who I've been married to for 26 years, as long as I have been at the biochemistry department. You can start calculating my age. Following UWC, I came and joined the biochemistry department for an honors degree, and then moved to Tygerberg, where I worked as a research assistant for the Medical Research Council. And this is where I also then did my master's in medical biochemistry. And then on my birthday in February 1998, I got a call from the then HOD of the biochemistry department, Professor Jannie Hofmeyer, and he said to me, "You have got a technical officer position in the biochemistry department." I said, "Thank you for your nice birthday present." And then I started working as a technical officer on the 1st of April. Does that date resonate with anybody? With you it would, right? Yes. We're not going to discuss that. In 2000, I was promoted to senior technical officer. And the then HOD, Professor Pieter Swart, I've worked under many HODs, he brought in a system called laboratory managers. And what that was is that technical officers moved into a research laboratory, and you now had exposure to the lab. You had the opportunity to actually do research. And I went into the research lab of Professor Janet Hapgood and Professor Anne Lowe, who I'm very pleased to have here this evening. So, Janet and Anne, thank you very much for being exceptional role models of women in science and showing me that it can be done, and that you can be a mom and a great scientist. I think I'm a great scientist. So it was in Janet's lab where I also was introduced to progestins in contraception for the first time. So remember that word progestins. Prof. Fielding has already given away part of my story. But anyway, but in 2000, I also became a mom for the first time. And then finally, in 2003, I had an academic position. And at this point, it's a great time now to do a PhD. And I wanted to do that PhD in inducible contraception with Professor Hapgood. But I clearly had a lot to learn. Because then I fell pregnant with my second daughter. And that was my baby girl. And then finally, I got the PhD in 2010. Now, after that long introduction, I need some water. Okay. So this slide is specifically for my friends and family who think that all I do is teach. Okay? I do not stand in front of a lecture theatre and teach all day. Do that too, but I also have service to the academic community and service to the community at large. And there are so many things I should have added, etc., etc., etc. But the part that I'm going to share with you today is my research, which is a large part of my job. And I do not look at a microscope all day. We actually have, now I lose the word because I want to boast. What was the word I used today? Anyway, the point is we use fantastic methodologies to answer our research questions. Okay. So now I'm going to take you back. Now the older people in the audience may remember this movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So when I was a child, every Friday night was movie night. And I do the same in my home. We do movies. But the difference is, in my home, we all decide what we are going to watch. When I was a child, we watched what my dad wanted to watch. And that was inevitably a Western movie. So for those who don't know, it's just a movie with cowboys. And I was introduced to this movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And so I want to use that today when I talk about progestins in women's health. But instead of saying the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'm going to tell the story of the good, the bad, and the undetermined. Okay, so let's first have a look at the female reproductive system. I actually don't know where to stand. And I want to bring your attention to the ovary, because this is where the sex hormones are made. So specifically, androgens, estrogens, and progesterone. Now, androgens is something like testosterone that you may know. Testosterone, yes, it's a male hormone, but we do have a little bit of testosterone in females as well. In fact, the potent estrogen, 17-beta estradiol, don't worry about the name, comes from testosterone. But you will notice that I'm just going to use this screen over here. I have made this progesterone larger. And the reason for that is because now I want to get to progestins. What are progestins? So progesterone is natural, is made in the body by the ovary, and it's really part of an umbrella term called progestogens. Included in these progestogens are progestins. Prof. Fielding said it's man-made, so yes, it is a synthetic compound that was designed to mimic progesterone action. That doesn't mean that it looks like progesterone necessarily. Some of it, yes, is derived from progesterone. Some are derived from testosterone, and some, actually only one, is derived from a drug called spironolactone, which is a drug that is used for drug failure, heart failure. So what you can really tell from the slide is there must be different progestins that look different. Okay. So now let's talk about the good of progestins. Clinically, they are used in hormonal contraceptives, for menopausal hormone therapy, and the treatment of gynecological disorders such as endometriosis, but also polycystic ovary syndrome or PCOS. I'm going to focus only on the contraceptives and the menopausal hormone therapy. So, the United Nations report on the world's population in 2022 stated that almost 50% of pregnancies are unintended. And you have to ask why, right? Is it because people don't know about contraception, they don't have access to contraception? And so the importance of contraception certainly comes to light. That contraception is needed. However, what is really important is that a woman has a choice of what type of contraception she wants to use. So, I've said that progestins are used in contraception. There are contraceptives that have only a progestin component and can be administered in different ways. Now, moving over here. Either an intramuscular injection, intrauterine device, an implant, so under the skin, or as a pill. And the POP is just a progestin-only pill. And these examples shown here are all examples that are used in South Africa. But what I want to highlight is that they all have different progestins. So you don't have to worry about the name. In fact, those are abbreviations. The point that I want to bring across is that there are different progestins in all of these contraceptives, but there are also contraceptives that have the same progestin. Now, it can also be given together with an estrogen in a combined oral contraceptive or as a patch. And again, you can have the same progestin or you can have different progestins. The main point that I want to make with this is there are many different types of progestins. So when you talk about contraception, you are not talking about one thing because there are different components in these contraceptives. Now, for menopausal hormone therapy, just some of you may wonder what this is. It is hormone replacement therapy, right? It's a new term that is used for hormone replacement therapy. And these progestins are also combined with an estrogen in the menopausal hormone therapy. And again, you see different progestins, but also similar progestins. And you also see the same names, right, that you have in the contraception and the same names that you see in the menopausal hormone therapy. So the differences here would be the dosage that is given. Okay. So recently I had a lunch with some of my girlfriends. And being our age was all about menopause. And I realized that perhaps it's a good idea to actually talk about the different stages of menopause. So when a woman is still having a regular period, those women are So if you look at this graph over here, you see this is the estrogen level, and you see the estrogen level is still quite high, right? That's pre-menopause, the woman is still having a regular period. Now the next stage is perimenopause. This is when your period becomes irregular, and you may experience some hot flashes like I am experiencing currently. And now what happens to the estrogen levels? You see, the estrogen levels are decreasing. This is perimenopause, and it can last a few months, up to 10 years or longer. Menopause is when you have not had a period for 12 months or a year, by definition. There's a specialist physician here in the audience, so I'm just going to add that, by definition. So that is what menopause is. You have not had a period for a year, 12 months. Post-menopause is after that year. So if you've not had a period for a year, then that means you are actually post-menopausal. And there you can see you have very low estrogen levels. So, with this decrease in estrogen comes what my mom used to call a change of life. And indeed, it's a heck of a change. I don't know if anybody recognizes themselves. I do recognize myself in some of that. But seriously, because estrogen plays such a vital role in female reproduction or in the female body, the decrease in estrogen is associated with numerous symptoms and complications. And so then, if the decrease in estrogen is the reason why we are seeing all of these complications, what would be the solution? I feel like I'm in my lecture hall. Nobody answers. I'm trying to interact with you.
Replace the estrogen.
Thank you so much, Professor Fielding. Replace, you saw my slides maybe? Replace the estrogen, okay? And this is fine. We can replace the estrogen. But most women still have all their organs intact, right? They have not had their uterus, or also referred to as the womb, removed. And because of that, because most women have a uterus, estrogen cannot be given on its own because it is associated with endometrial hyperplasia, so excessive bleeding and abnormal bleeding, and also endometrial cancer. So the progestogen is added to work against the estrogen. A woman that has had a hysterectomy, of course, does not have that problem and can only be treated with the estrogen. So although we talk about hormone replacement therapy, menopausal hormone therapy as it's one thing, it is not one thing. There's two separate treatments, and in addition to that, the treatment that has the progestogen is mostly a progestin, and it can be any of a number of different progestins. Okay, so they work very well as contraceptives. They do the job in menopausal hormone therapy and also with the treatment of gynecological disorders. So why are they bad? Unfortunately, progestins are associated with a number of side effects. And some side effects are less severe than others. So I've highlighted the less severe ones. Well, I should say the less severe ones are not highlighted. But I don't know, some people feel that weight gain is quite severe. But it's not. It's not severe if you look at the context of breast cancer, susceptibility to HIV, the possibility of blood clots in the veins. Those are all rather serious. But right now, I want to make the point that not all progestins have been evaluated for side effects. So not all progestins are associated with these side effects. We don't know. That's the honest truth. Right, Janet? Okay. So what does this do? It leaves women who need to take these progestins for contraception or menopausal hormone therapy confused as to what to take, and medical practitioners confused as to what to prescribe. So this is really the focus of my research. Why do we see these side effects? And what exactly is happening at the cellular level? So my friends and family, now we need to move to a little more science, okay? But we're going to try and keep it simple. So, all of us have different organs, right? And organs are made up of a collection of tissues. Those tissues consist of several cells that have specific function, and cells have specific organelles. And my focus is over there. And shortly, I will show you how the progestins work within the cell and specifically also in the nucleus. It's not quite the nucleus there. Okay. Sorry, I'm thirsty. So, my research focus in the last 20 years has been looking at progestin mechanisms via steroid receptors, looking at the effects of progestins on immunity in the female genital tract, the effect of progestins on breast cancer and how that is affected by obesity, and then also how progestins affect the biosynthesis of steroid hormones. So to do this, I'm going to use the analogy of a lock and key. In this scenario, a key fits into a lock in a specific way to open it, right? Not any key can open any lock. So the analogy is then that the progestin is a key and the lock is what is called a steroid receptor. And when the progestin binds to the steroid receptor, you have a biological response. Okay. We still have? Okay. For progestins, this receptor is the progesterone receptor, of which there are two types. So now we need to go look at what happens in the cell. So progesterone travels in the bloodstream and then moves into the cell where it will bind to the progesterone receptor. So that is now the lock and key. Once it has bound, it moves into the nucleus where it will either activate gene expression or inhibit gene expression. Are we still here? Okay. Let's bring it a little closer to home. I'm going to use another example, the glucocorticoid receptor. The glucocorticoid receptor, so that's the lock. The key is a glucocorticoid. Anything yet? No. Okay. So now, how many of you have ever been treated with prednisone or cortisone? That's a glucocorticoid. Okay? So the glucocorticoid will come into the bloodstream, go into the cell, and bind to its lock, the glucocorticoid receptor. What is the point of giving the prednisone is to decrease inflammation. Okay? And how does it do that? By this little mechanism over here. So that is why we then have anti-inflammatory effects. Does that make more sense? Okay, but sometimes when you take these, you also have some side effects. You can't sleep, you feel bloated, some of the famous weight gain. That other mechanism is what causes side effects. Okay, right, moving on. But now, the progesterone receptor and the glucocorticoid receptor belongs to a bigger family of steroid receptors. And these receptors, as you can see, are very similar in structure, and the basic mechanism of action is also quite similar. So we can see the progesterone receptor as the master lock, but the other receptors are also locks. And progestins are known to be quite promiscuous, and they bind to these other locks. So now I'm going to do some data. Okay. So one of the receptors that we have looked at is the androgen receptor. Now the androgen receptor is the receptor for the male hormone. And the example in this graph is something called dihydrotestosterone, DHT. Don't worry about the name. What I want you to look at is the fact that over here you have all these curves that are basically lying on top of each other. So what we looked at here is whether the progestins and progesterone would bind to this receptor and compare that to how the male hormone binds. And you see they are all on top of each other, which means they bind the receptor with the same affinity, equal strength. Okay. Then we have another progestin that we did the same thing for. This is now progestin over here with progesterone. And while these curves don't lie completely on top of each other, they're also basically the same. So what all of this shows is that progesterone and progestins, they bind this androgen receptor in the same way. Great, because isn't it true that the progestins are supposed to do what progesterone does? But it's the androgen receptor. They were designed to bind the androgen receptor. And on top of it, bind the receptor as well as the male hormone. But binding is not a good indication of activity. So all we know at this point is that it binds the receptor. But what does it actually do? So we can do a number of assays. I'm only showing you one, so as not to completely put you to sleep. So we have to look at what the activity is. And again, only look at the colors. So now I'm going this way. Over here we have these two lines. These are two progestins that are basically lying on top of each other. But now it's very far away from the male androgen. And over here we have progesterone and another progestin. So what that shows us is that firstly, progesterone over here, the red curve, is not the same as those two progestins. So in fact, the progestins are not doing the same as progesterone. But there is one progestin that is doing exactly what progesterone is doing. So, from this we can tell that some progestins will act like progesterone and others won't. And we can also tell that all progestins are not the same. So, together with my mentor and collaborator at UCT, Professor Jan Hapwood, we have investigated many a progestin interacting with many a steroid receptor. And we have published a number of papers on this, but just to bring you back to the androgen receptor, what does it mean that there are progestins that can bind as well as the androgen? It means that, for example, women will grow facial hairs and they may also have problems with acne. So what this is providing us with a basis to understand why we see certain side effects, but not only side effects. because, for example, drospirenone, that was very similar to progesterone, it has anti-androgenic effects. So it is actually good in that can be used, for example, for the treatment of diseases with androgen excess. Okay. So that was the steroid receptors. How much time do I have? Moving on to the immune system, and specifically looking at immunity in the female genital tract. So this study was actually part of my PhD, and what was known at that time is that there are some hormones that can modulate immunity in the female genital tract, and this leads to increased risk of genital tract infections, such as HIV. So a close look at the lower female genital tract, which consists of the vagina, and then the outer part of the cervix, the ectocervix, and the inner part of the cervix, the endocervix. And what was known at this time is that inflammation in the lower female genital tract increases susceptibility to sexually transmitted diseases or viral infections, in fact. So it is important to maintain a balance between pro and anti-inflammatory mediators in this environment. One study that we did in ectocervical cells, we did a number of fancy experiments that led us to this model, and all you have to know about this model is that progestogens actually disrupted this balance in the female genital tract, leading to increased inflammation. And we showed that it is not the master lock, the PR, that is involved, but it is the glucocorticoid receptor that mediates this response. Okay, 2 projects down, 2 to go. So the next part is breast cancer. Now there were 3 large clinical trials. The Women's Health Initiative in the US, and the Million Women study in the UK, and then the E3N study in France. And these studies showed that progestins are associated with increased risk of breast cancer. I want to highlight that it is specific progestins that have been associated. Then there was a large meta-analysis in 2019 where that was published in Lancet, very esteemed journal, and they confirmed that these 3 progestins, MPA, MET, and IMG, are associated with increased breast cancer risk. Now, understanding the association of the link between progestins and breast cancer is really crucial when you consider incidence of breast cancer, that it is the most commonly diagnosed cancer in the world, according to the WHO, and it is also the most common cause of cancer death in women. In South Africa, it is also the most frequently diagnosed cancer in women. But breast cancer is not one thing. It's not breast cancer. There are many different types of breast cancer. And so, within the tumor or the cancer cell, there are also many different processes that makes this cell a cancerous cell. And so we try and look at all of these processes, but of course, Rome was not built in a day. So I'm going to show you one little example of sustained proliferative signaling, which basically refers to the cell growing out of control, as you have with cancer. So, one, I feel I'm not to the side of the room enough. So come here. So, again, don't be bogged down with detail. Just know, oh my word, that we have looked at different progestins and we have looked at proliferations. And what we see, you can see all of these curves, they lie in different places, which means that they all increase breast cancer cell proliferation, but to different extents. And this one over here, raspirinone, is very far shifted to the right, which means that you would need a lot of this, so a high concentration, to get the same response as the others. But what we can tell is that all progestins, again, are not equal. They do not all have the same effect on breast cancer cell proliferation. We also look at gene expression, so we look at markers of breast cancer, and again we see some progestins are different to progesterone, while there is a progestin that is similar, and you have progestins that are different. And with this study, we also showed that now the master lock is needed, the progesterone receptor is needed for the response, but also the estrogen receptor. So what this means is that for hormone-dependent cancers, one could possibly target both the estrogen receptor and the progesterone receptor. So, I've said to you that there's 3 progestins that is now been confirmed to increase breast cancer risk. But another risk factor for breast cancer is obesity. So you think that if obesity increases breast cancer risk and the progestin increases risk, obese woman who takes these progestins in menopausal hormone therapy, the risk would be higher. But in fact, that Lancet studies said that obese women using these progestins have a lower risk of breast cancer incidence, while lean or normal weight women have a higher risk. Kind of boggles the mind. I have some ideas, but I'm not going to share them right now. First need to do a little more work. But one of the mechanisms by which obesity increases breast cancer risk is by increased production of proteins by the fat cell called adipokines. And we did a little experiment looking at the effect of these adipokines and 2 progestins on breast cancer cell proliferation, and yes, all of them increase proliferation. Right? If it's above 1, it means it's increasing the breast cancer cell growth. But when we put them together, we no longer see that increase in growth. Now, one would be tempted to say, oh, this must be the reason why these women, why they don't have increased risk. This is early days. As scientists, we do not make conclusive or definitive conclusions until we have sufficient evidence. Hence, you will see it is still unpublished. Okay? So then the final part, I know you're all tired. The final part of my journey is looking at the effect of the progestins on the biosynthesis of steroid hormones. In a woman, there are 4 main organs that are involved. For this, the adrenal gland that will release some precursors into the bloodstream that will be used by these other tissues, the adipose tissue, breast, and the ovary. In my lab, we are focused on those 3 organs, while our collaborator is looking at the ovary. So just one example, because I have to show data for everything. In the adrenal, we have shown, for example, 2 progestins one progestin can decrease the synthesis of progesterone, while another has no effect. So again, just showing that all progestins do not do the same thing always. Okay, so now the last part of the journey is the undetermined. This is the part that's still going to keep me having a job for the next while, Professor Fielding. So while we have certainly answered a number of questions, and we are beginning to fill the puzzle in terms of the questions we have about progestins in women's health, there are still so many questions that need answering. For my own research group, of course, we are still going to look at the effects on steroid hormone synthesis, biosynthesis, because there's just so much to do. And then something that I did not talk about today is the fact that the steroid hormone moves in the bloodstream bound to steroid binding proteins. And how much of this binding protein is around will affect how much of the steroid actually gets into the cell. Then, of course, I told you of the many hallmarks of breast cancer, many processes involved. We have only touched on a fraction of this. Our interest is still in how progestins ultimately have responses in the female genital tract that will lead to susceptibility to infections. And because of the increased incidence in obesity in South Africa and worldwide, how obesity affects all of these processes. And central, of course, to all of this is steroid receptors. So, for those that have been awake, it's now time to wake up. You sleep, it's now time to wake up. Because I want to give you the take-home message. Okay, if you take nothing home with you today, then please, there are two main messages. The one is that progestins are not equal to progesterone. Progesterone is natural, it is made in the body by your ovary. Progestins, as Professor Fielding stole my shine, is man-made, it is synthetic, right? And do not use the two terms interchangeably. Okay. The second take-home message is, I've shown you that there are different types of progestins and that all progestins do not necessarily do the same thing. So when it gets to deciding which progestin to use in contraception or menopausal hormone therapy, it's really up to you to weigh up the risks and benefits profile of the progestin. But of course, to do this together with an informed health practitioner. Okay, that is the message, so that you can choose the main or the best progestin for you. And so, finally, sure. None of this work would be possible without a whole team. Right? You can have all the research questions in the world, but you need to work together with people. So, I am going to start by thanking my team of postgraduate students through the years. There are some of you that are in the audience, so thank you very much. Without these students, none of this would be possible. And it's so rewarding to see how you have grown from where you started in the lab and where you are currently. You will notice that my surname is Africander, so it's Africander lab, but we put ourselves at 18. Now, again, my age is going to give me away, the young people may not. But there used to be this TV show called But the one thing about them was, if you had a problem, you go to the A team. So listen, guys, you have a problem, you come to my group, and they will help you solve the problem. And then, of course, my current A team, my current group of students who roped me in to having new lab coats made for them. Where are you all? Over there. Yeah, you're the reason why I'm here, right? Academia is certainly not an easy space to be in, but the research and together with postgraduate students, you definitely make it worthwhile. So thank you. My home away from home, the biochemistry department. Many of my colleagues are here this evening and the students. Thank you very much for all the years of joy. And then also the Central Analytical Facility, specifically Dr. Africander, for all the help with the mass spectrometry. And although they are also my colleagues part of the biochemistry department, I have to give a special thanks to Dr. Nikki for work and Professor Paul Storbeck, who are part of what we are now called series arts. All of us do research in the field of steroids and steroid receptors. Almost there. Lots of people to thank. And then, of course, no research would be possible without money. So I have to thank the many funders. These are not all the funders, are not that wonderful. Some of them are also people, institutions that I work with, researchers at these institutions, and I have to give a special mention to the groups of Professor Janet Ackwood, together with Dr. Chanel Abeland at UCT and their teams. And last, not quite last, but almost last, but not the least, my husband, Nolan, without whom this journey would be impossible. There were crazy times doing a PhD with 2 little kids while you were also studying. And then to my daughters, in my PhD thesis acknowledgements, I wrote this little blurb about how I hope that one day you will understand why you had so little time with me. And that so little time has just continued. But one day, I will not go up to your shoulders. I will be there for you. So thank you very much for everything. I love you lots. And then now I'm going to hand over to Professor Strauss, but before that, just a last word of thanks from my side for all of that attended and took the time to come and listen to me, both in person and also online. Thank you.
Another round, please. Dean Bertram Fielding, Vice Deans, heads of departments, staff, students of Stellenbosch University and other campuses, alumni, emeritus colleagues, societal partners, and guests and friends and family, husband and children and mother of colleague Donita. It is great to hear about the 18 as well. I immediately felt at home. And every time the 18 episodes would conclude when they solved the problem with, I love it when a plane so I'm at home. Tonight is really a time of celebration. You said it, Dean, right at the beginning when we arrived here, and we celebrate you, colleague Donita. And I call you colleague because the word colleague means, from the Latin, that together we are elected and together we are mandated. You are now a full professor of Stellenbosch University. Council of this university and Senate approved that you deserve to be a full professor, and we certify it by handing over, on behalf of them, this document to you. Our staff and our students at the university, and especially tonight our full professors, are driven and guided by the values of the university. We strive to be a value-driven institution, and we have 5 values. We call it the so-called E-care values. We are driven by excellence. We're trying to give our best in terms of our specific mandates, our potentialities, and our opportunities. And we do our work with determination, with dedication, and with discipline, excellence. Secondly, we are driven by compassion, to feel with others, sympathy, to feel ourselves into the skins of others, empathy, and to feel ourselves and think ourselves into the skins of others over all types of boundaries. That's empathy. Then, accountability. We give account of what we're doing. We display what we do. Therefore, we say we're transparent. And where you're transparent, there people trust you, there they believe in you, there they say you're in the truth and truthfulness business. Accountability, but also respect. You often heard tonight, I must still do some more thinking about this. Respect literally means I put on my spectacles again, respect. Look again, think again, research further, get the data, respect. And then lastly, equity is our 5th value. Equity from the Latin quietus, which means we want equilibrium, we want fairness, we guard against extremes, absolutizations. That's unscientific, we say. To really be scientific is to function with equity in this sense of make sure you are level-headed, you are level-hearted, you are level-handed. Jy leef met ewewig. Then you advance science that really makes an impact. May I conclude? Tonight we saw somebody who embodies these values. And where you embody values like this, you make an impact. And tonight again, we saw a healing impact. In the transformation plan of Stellenbosch University, we indicate what we want to transform towards. And one of the things that we transform towards, we say, in line with the South African Constitution, transform to a life of healing for all. And we could see it tonight, Professor Donita, in the way you portrayed what you are doing. You gave us a window into your research, your teaching, your impact. You contribute to the healing of vulnerable humans. Your focus especially on women in society. Your work indeed makes a healing impact on society. We do staff surveys regularly. And every time when we do a staff survey at the university, our staff indicate the most important reason why they are at the university. The biggest joy for them is they believe there is meaning in their work, there is significance. And tonight, this was demonstrated. So, congratulations, Corey. We look forward to continue the journey with you in this joyful way in which you did it tonight, and nobody fails you.
Nou, hoe praat mens na die oefening? I have to say votes of thanks, but during the talk, Donita thanked so many people so often, I didn't really know where to start. So I am going to say thank you from the perspective of the department. And so I specifically want to say thank you to Meryl and to Nicole and to Robin for sacrificing your mother in ways that I don't think you realize, because I know how much she works. But now I'm never going to have the chance again to have you and the extended friends and family here. I'm going to reprimand you, because I've been the only one who's been telling her not to work so hard, right? I hope you are now going to take, because maybe she said up to now, oh, I have to become a professor. Now she's the professor, so now I get that. I make the title in. Just not take it for the side. Then I have to thank Donita's academic family, her colleagues, those of us in the department and broader who stood alongside her and supported her. She also asked me specifically to thank you, Louise, for supporting her during the past 10 years. It's been a very formative time in her career. I'm also going to thank those people who were not supported, because in a way, they said, you've got to show them, right? And maybe that is also one of the things that got you here today. So for those of you that did not believe, the colleagues who thought that maybe Donita couldn't do it, we showed her, right? So thanks to you too. I also have to finally thank her research group, past and present, because as she said, as academics, we take the shine, we stand in front, we get the pretty dresses. But you're the ones doing the hard work. So thank you so much for supporting her in that way. And then thank you to the team who has put this event together, making sure that we're going to have nice eats afterwards. People are all expected to make sure we stay on time. Thanks so much for Jonathan and the team for all the work that you've done. And for Suzette Els as well from the Dean's office. Without Suzette, all the things don't get done. So Suzette, thank you so much for your support. And then lastly, I have to thank Donita. Yesterday I spent 7 hours in a council meeting. Those of you that know what happens on Stellenbosch campus, it was an interesting meeting. I didn't put on a tie for the council meeting. This morning, the dean and I went to see the rector about the matter. I didn't put on a tie, but for the leader, I put on a tie. She's a colleague, she's a friend. Donita, thank you for speaking truth to power. For those of us with little power, you still keep us, you keep us on our toes, but you also help us to think more broadly. And we've heard this in many ways, so thank you for doing that. And thank you for becoming a professor, because that means I don't have to be actually still. And with that, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. We're now going to leave here again at the academic procession, and I'm inviting you to join us for some refreshments afterwards. Thank you.